Yeah.
My name's Scott. I'm an alcoholic. Happy birthday on 6 months. That's awesome. And 2 years is a big deal. And Tom, congratulations, man. I love you, buddy. That's awesome. So, yeah, I found out 20 minutes ago. I was supposed to introduce my friend Chris here. And he told me last night he was speaking at this meeting. And I've known Chris my whole 8 years plus in this meeting or in AA. And he's just a young kid with an old soul, man. He's become one of my best friends in this program. And he's also got a juvenile delinquent sense of humor, which I kind of adore once in a while. But he's super amazing. I watched him speak here probably 7 or almost 8 years ago, and his story was amazing then, and I've watched his sobriety and I follow it pretty close, man. We're really good friends. We've gotten to know his family. Watch his career path, the whole thing with Alcoholics Anonymous, man. He shows up to meetings, he does service work, and he gives back. He's got a ton of sponsees. He's just huge heart in this program, and probably enough out of me, man. Brother, love you, and thank you.
Well, hello everyone. My name's Chris. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Scott. Scott's one of my best friends, and it's one of those funny things that's like, in any other world, our paths would not cross, but we cross due to alcoholism, and got to know Scott since he got here, and can't tell you about a better friend. So, really grateful to be here. It's been a long time. I've been here in years. In early sobriety, I came here quite a bit. Nice not to have to worry about the pressure of sharing. I don't know if any of y'all feel like that, but sometimes in some meetings, like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to get called on. And so speaker meetings were nice early on. And nowadays, it's 11 a.m. on a Sunday. I want to be home chilling. Football starts at 11 a.m. But I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking me, Stanley. I'm an alcoholic. I think I have been for a very long time, kind of since the very beginning. When I think about early on in my life, I can always reference back to kind of this nervous disposition, right? Just like never feeling okay in my own skin. There was always this like incessant need to really impress people, to make people like me. So it made it very hard to just feel okay. And I seemed to battle that all the way up until I found alcohol, really. I tried alcohol really early on, like kindergarten is one of those things, like you see your dad and all his buddies kind of hanging out drinking, and you're like, dang, dude, that looks like fun. Like my dad's the man. Love that guy. And him and his friends were, I don't know, they were always so cool to me and so nice. So I loved hanging out with my dad and his friends, but they're always doing this thing that I noticed early on. They were drinking. They always had these beers and stuff. So I would sneak drinks here and there. And I would try it, spit it out because it was disgusting. But kind of for some reason keep doing that over and over, even as disgusting as it was. And so there's already this some sort of attraction there. And I kind of chased that and always kind of came back to, it seemed, alcohol for a lot of things. And then life happened, we all got these traumas, and I got all this stuff from childhood that's kind of seemed to keep stacking up, and I started to withdraw from the world. It was even getting harder and harder to just try to be okay. And then I was 12 years old when I had my first drunk, and that 12 years old's a funny age. It's like the one I hear the most when I hear alcoholic stories. I don't know what it is about 12 years old. I mean, I think, what is that? Is that third grade? I don't know when to put it in perspective. I don't remember that detail. Is it? Am I wrong? Yeah. No, 6 or 7. That's what I meant. I should know that. Yes. So, um, it was such a, like, I remember that day more than what happened a month ago when I had my first drunk, So, um, I like to, me and my buddies, we were kind of a wild crew. We were always getting in trouble. And that's just what we did. We ran around, we were outside, we were biking, we were setting outhouses on fire. Like we did a couple of those. We were just always doing wild stuff, and so I don't know what really got into us that night, but we were like up at my buddy's house, and he's got a nice hot tub. And as you do, you find their parents' liquor cabinet, and like, okay, this is what we're gonna do tonight. And for me, it's just like bam, 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 all the different kind of liquor are in a glass, and you just like passing it around, chugging as much as you can. And I remember about 5 minutes of that night, and you know, woke up that next day from a pretty horrific blackout. I think like borderline alcohol poisoning. Couldn't eat or drink for like 3 days after that. Um, and like, whoa, that was insane. But what I do remember from like those 5 minutes was kind of like this sense of like ease and comfort, that I felt like I'd been looking for a long time. I kind of felt like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Like I felt okay. It seemed like when looking back, I didn't really have that perspective then, but when I got sober and start work the steps and talk to my sponsor about these kind of things, I really realized like in that moment, like I finally felt okay, felt okay in my own skin, which is something it seemed like I've been looking for the whole time, my whole life leading up into this point. And that feeling right there is really what drove my alcoholism all the way until the bitter end. I just wanted that feeling back. It worked for quite a while, and I had a blast in high school and beyond. But was something that I noticed early on about my drinking that was different than like my friends and the people I hung out with is I blacked out a lot and like a lot. It seemed to be like every time I drank. Um, and I could never figure out why. I try to control it, try to see like I'm gonna do something different this night. We've all heard it a million times, like only beer tonight or beer before liquor. Nope, liquor before beer, you're in the clear. Trying to do all these kind of things just to kind of manage or to see how can I not black out tonight and make an ass of myself, but could never figure it out. I want to get as insanely drunk as possible without blacking out. But I learned in here, that once I start drinking, I can't stop. It's just the fact of the matter. It's no gray area. It just is what it is. And when someone's got that problem, it gets scary real quick. And not a lot that can be done. And that was a lot of my drinking was just get insanely drunk until I passed out, blacked out, ran out of money, or ended up in jail. I think Darren says that. I hope some of y'all know Darren. He's a good dude. Miss him around here. So that's just it in a nutshell, and I got sober pretty young. I got sober at 22. I had 10 years of drinking, pretty heavy drinking, and after that, but for some reason, it just seemed that I had enough when I had enough. My last drunk was a DUI, ended up in jail. And it's not that big of a deal, it seemed, but like it's the second DUI. I had a DUI before, same thing in a blackout, but kind of around here, it's like in Montana, everyone gets one, right? Everyone gets a DUI. It's not that big of a deal. But the second one was a little bit different. It was only a year apart. It was hilarious because like I got my DUI license suspended. Got my license back, like got it back and lost it in 1 week. Got a DUI like the next week. So it was hilarious. I was fortunate. I did drive in between some, but not a ton. But didn't get in trouble then. But it just funny. Get the license back, another DUI gone again. Uh, yeah. So, but that time was a little more serious. Life had gotten quite a bit more dark at that time. Like it wasn't so much social drinking anymore. It got life got really dark and got really small. I used to enjoy going to the bars. But when you got a pretty serious drinking habit and you don't have any money, it's hard to go to the bars. At least it was for me. So life got small and like reclusive into the home where just drinking, just go to work. Well, I drink at work a lot. Worked at Double Front early on and frying chicken but the Silver Dollar Bar was right down, so I'd always just go down there and grab a pint whenever I needed and come back to work. But it was at that point it was like drinking all day long, waking up just to just to drink. And like I would usually have to work at 8, but I'd always work out and I'd deal with my employer. I always lie and say like I needed to get my wife to work at 8, so I'm always going to be just a few minutes late just so I can like get to the liquor store at 8 o'clock to make it happen. Went to pretty great lengths to make sure that drinking was always an option, always a priority. Um, but again, back to that last DUI and waking up in jail in the blackout, like I had a different feeling when I woke up in jail that morning. Morning was a little different. I was in Gen Pop that time, I guess you say, for you familiar delinquents familiar with going to jail. I'd never been before. You got like the orange on and you're in this pod with people and you're like, oh fuck. Like yikes. I've had a good life. I can't say I haven't, like growing up usually. So like that was pretty scary. That was really scary for me. And but because of the compounding stuff that happened from my alcoholism at the end there, you know, a different change in tune. Like I had to go and ask the guard there, like or whatever, and be like, "What am I doing here?" And they told me that I was drinking and driving, and it really scared me that time. Um, you know, it had never scared me before. I drink and drive. It's what I do. I have total disregard for other human life, people. Doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters one bit. But that's where I could tell something was a little different this time, is because being told that I was drinking and driving that time scared the hell out of me. So I just went back to the cell, and it was kind of the first time where I don't know. Some people may say like maybe that first step happened then. And an official time is I got back to that cell and I just hit my knees and asked for help. Um, didn't know what I was asking help to. I'm not a religious guy. I had no relation of spirituality or higher power, none of that stuff. But I was just asking for help. Didn't know where it was going to, but um, I knew I couldn't do what I was doing anymore. Um, yeah, I just didn't know, but I didn't have any kind of solution. I didn't know what next steps were. I didn't have anybody call to come get me out. There's a lot of fear, scared to death. Um, but I haven't had a drink since that day, and that was over 11 years ago. And so something happened in that jail cell. I don't know. I can't tell you what, but um, due to this program, I think I've learned over the years that I believe now that there is a higher power looking over me in that moment. And things had changed because I know that because I didn't get to Alcoholics Anonymous until about 6 months after my uh that DUI. Um, I had to do the breathalyzer thing a couple of days, so that really helped me. And for some reason, there going to jail was more scarier than drinking, so I had that help. But after those 3 months were up, I was kind of free, I guess you can say. But I had this like fierce determination to just keep going with this sobriety thing, just to see how long I could go. Because believe it or not, I was kind of starting to feel okay. Starting like body was doing all right. Like when I quit drinking, I was jaundiced. I weighed like 120 pounds. I didn't eat. I just drink vodka. Vodka is the best. It always will be. And like that's that's all. Like so I was pretty sick by the end, but now again I'm feeling okay. So I'm like wanting to see if I can keep this going. Um and so I did, but it wasn't easy. It was extremely hard. I'm not one of those alcoholics that you can just take the alcohol away from and then just gonna be okay. Um, I suffered in a way that I wish I would have known about Alcoholics Anonymous sooner so I didn't have to. Um, by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, it was due to a referral from an outpatient treatment, whatever a turning point was back then. I went to the Young Guns meeting at 10 o'clock at night for my first meeting, and that was a really good meeting. And then the next day I went to the nooner, and then that next night I went to the 8 o'clock, which is my home group. And the Zoo group's always been my home group. I fell in love with that meeting, and it's just been my home group for my whole sobriety. And you know, I found that um, I was getting really close to doing something to myself that couldn't be undone before the end. I was sober, I guess you could say, or dry or whatever. But I was thinking about killing myself every single day. I just couldn't handle reality out there without alcoholism or without alcohol or without a solution. It was a scary place to be for me. And it was just going on every day, like get up, go to work, come home, don't leave home. So I'm too scared if I go leave home, I'm gonna go drink or I'm gonna go do something. So again, life is like just as small and isolated as it was when drinking. So it was like getting to that point where it's just like, why am I doing this? Life is horrible still, but I'm sober and I'm thinking about killing myself every single day. But I'm grateful I found myself in Alcoholics Anonymous when I did, because I remember my first meeting at Young Guns, and more importantly, I guess at the Missoula group is my very first meeting, something happened that, I hadn't had ever before, I guess in sobriety. I had a hope, there was people in there talking about their story, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And and listening to those people be so vulnerable, talk about their story in that way, laughing about it, gave me a tremendous amount of hope that like maybe I am in the right spot. Maybe I don't have to suffer anymore. Maybe if I just keep coming back here, um I can I can be sober. I don't think the goal was ever to really be sober at that time, like long term. I just wanted to not hurt myself. Yeah, at that time. I needed to figure out this alcoholism thing. But I went to a lot of meetings in my first 6 months. I only think I missed a handful, period. I was at that Missoula group darn near every single night for 6 months. Partly for sobriety, but partly, it was an exciting group at the time. I wanted to see what was going to go on, what was going to happen next. It was fun. Like you'd see like pints or bottles rolling across the floor sometimes, and it was an exciting time. Like for that reason. So I don't know if that's the right thing or not, but it kept me coming back one way or the other. So I really believe in like I tried the 90 and 90. I failed, but I'm a big believer in if you come just as much as humanly possible, as much as you can, I think you've got a really good chance. I mean, if you're an alcoholic, right? Yeah. So yes. But early on, I'm really grateful for the Missoula group because what I heard in those meetings was people talking about God a lot. We talked about God was often the topic. We talked about sponsorship a lot. We talked about the steps. We talked about the traditions, and it made it very real for me that like these are the things that people with God, 5, 10, 15, even a year. I couldn't even imagine a year of sobriety at the time. But those are the things that these people are doing that's keeping them sober. Um, so I really wanted to keep coming back. What was really integral for me was sponsorship. I didn't get a sponsorship right away. I was one of those guys that came to the meeting, sat at like the last chair where Jim is over there, so I could hit the door as soon as possible after. Come late, leave early initially. But um, get sponsorship. Yes, I didn't get one right away. I listened. However, I asked this guy, Larry, to be my sponsor. Um, and it kind of changed the game a little bit for me. It's like this time I was kind of hanging around AA, but listening, but not really doing any step work and not really doing any of the work that gets us really sober. Um, but getting that commitment to get a sponsor changed the game, and it was kind of the easy choice. I worked a double front. He was the swamper. Like I would get there in the morning and he'd be there cleaning the restaurant and he'd always talk to me. And like he even told me later, but he knew I was drunk because I'd always show up drunk. And the funny thing about alcoholics is like they think they don't stink, right? You think you're sneaky, and you know, and and Long Stop Vodka was the best one for that. I was the least smelly, but no, he always knew, but he always talked to me. And I enjoyed talking to him. Never brought up alcoholism, never brought up drinking. Are you drunk? Never, never once. Um, but but when I got to AA, he was there, and I would sit by him because he's the only one was the only person I knew. When I got sober, a little different now, but back then there wasn't so many young people. It makes me so happy to see that there's young people getting sober. They don't have to take it to the better end or go through many divorces or I don't, you know what I mean, like any of that kind of stuff. Um, so there just wasn't that many young people to hang out with. So I don't know, I got used to chatting with the old timers and became friends with guys that were older than me. And so um, but Larry, I asked him to be my sponsor, and it's an interesting relationship because unfortunately we didn't really work the steps, but we read that book. We read the big book and the 12 and 12 a couple of times in about 18 months, but we didn't work the steps. Really, like I spent all that time on a first step. I had like a notebook full. We just did it was of just like my life, like pretty much just telling a sad story, right? Like it was so Larry helped me tremendously, taught me things like how to be useful. Um, be one to complain about some things. I remember just early on, I like to go disc golfing. And I'd complain about like trash on the disc golf course for some reason, like the guy who just throws beer cans on the golf course like years ago, and now I'm complaining about like there's trash on the golf course, classic alcoholic shit. Yeah, so he just like what just doesn't come into my mind and like telling me stuff like why don't you pick up the trash? Like what me? Carrying this stuff around with me, but I did it. He's my sponsor. He told me to do something. I did it. And I did it because I respected the man. I loved his story, and he was my sponsor. Like he didn't appoint himself to be my sponsor. So I just kind of subscribe to that a bit. If you ask someone to be their sponsor, you should probably listen to them, listen to their suggestions. Um, so he really taught me like some of those just foundational things to be a good person in society, right? Do things for others. Um, try to be as selfless as possible and just be useful. Because for such a long time, I was a pretty big taker of everything, money, alcohol. I took a lot of people's security. I instilled a lot of fear in folks, especially like family, of course. Yeah, I took a lot of things from a lot of people. So, really trying to hone in on like that, be useful whenever you can is, just flipping that all on its head and really helped. But, I ended up getting a new sponsor at the time, and Sean M is my sponsor, and we've been working together for, oh gosh, 10 years at this point. And, that that guy knows me very well. He knows me better than like anyone on this planet. I shared everything with him. Um, it was really helpful. We meet every Friday. Well, early on, we met every Friday, and it was just what it did. It was really helpful at the time for me to have some structure. Like we meet on this time at this date, so I don't make plans or um, don't do anything like that. So we'd meet at 5 o'clock on Fridays. We met every week for a long time, and we worked the steps. We worked the steps as they came up. We started at page 0. Sure, a lot of you hear it. You open up the book on the first page, it says, "You don't know shit." And like, I don't know anything about alcoholism, and I don't. I really don't. I know how to drink, questionable, I guess, but like, I don't know anything about being sober. Nothing. So we started at page 0. We read everything, every word. And what was really helpful for me at the time was we had these little dictionaries, these big book concordances, and we would have that with us as we read along because, well, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. Like there's a lot of words in there, I don't know what they mean, or I think I do, but not really. So we had this book to help like explain what they're talking about in there, to put like context to these words and situations. So it really helped me, kind of understand what um, Bill and Dr. Bob were talking about. But we took it slow. It wasn't like a hurry process. Gosh, I think it took me a year to get through the steps the first time. There was no rush. We really took our time reading those words in those pages. And what really clicked early on was that, I related to every page in that book. Like I initially had a little bit of questions about like, am I going to be sober forever? Am I an alcoholic? Because I was 22, 23. I'm like, that's pretty young, right? Like, am I going to be sober for the rest of my life? I don't know, but by taking our time and reading that book, I found myself on all those pages. Like I felt they're talking about me. They're talking about the way I drank. And it just made it very real for me that, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and that I can't drink again. I can't ever drink safely again. And if I do, who knows what's going to happen? It might not happen immediately, but for an alcoholic like me, alcohol is going to kill me one way or the other. And, the book like cleared up any of those questions. Like maybe someday I'll be able to drink normally again, like a normal person. And so I bought in at that point, and God, early on in those pages, talking about alcoholism and a chronic alcoholic, it made it I don't know. I just identified it big time, and I believe in the words in that big book. I've never found even today any situation in my life, any kind of fear, any kind of anger, resentments, like relationship issues. I've never found anything in my life has never come up that I can't solve by working through, by looking in that big book or putting it somewhere in the steps and talking about it with a sponsor. Like it works, it's worked 100% of the time for me so far. And I have faith that it will continue to work in that same way as long as I just stay close to this program and keep meeting my sponsor, keep working the steps, and then keep, working with the guys that I have the privilege of sponsoring. And one of the next pivotal parts for me was kind of in that fifth step. I got to do my second and third step early on. Those are kind of those steps that are like with God, like I just said yes. Like there's something out there. It's not like this super deep mental exercise for me. I just had a trust in the process and a trust like if I just work these steps, like my life's gonna get better. So I found We Agnostics to be such a powerful chapter for me in helping understand the higher power stuff. And there's just a line in there that always comes back to me. It talks about like the fundamental idea of God is deep down in each and every one of us, and it will show itself to whoever's looking as long as they try to do this thing, as long as they're trying to honestly look. And I think I had that honesty piece, built in by that point because, alcohol had humbled me so much that I had the belief that I can't drink anymore. Um, so got to got to do the third step, and again, that was just another step that, like, I believe that God can work for me. But having done all that, like, there's quite a bit more work to be done at that point, and at that point, we just launched onto a course of vigorous action, and that's where the real magic happened for me. Is like I got to put my life down on paper. I'd only kind of talked about it up until that point, but now I finally have my life on paper right in front of me. We talked about those resentments, we talked about those fears, that sexual stuff, and then harms to others, and quite a bit of work to do in there. There's quite a few columns to work through, and it took quite a while to get through all of that stuff with my sponsor. But now looking back on, there's like the true magic happens in that fourth column of like, what is my part? And I think reframing from, what other people had done or so on, and trying to take the perspective of what was my part in these situations, like, made it manageable. It made it so like there was something that I could do about it, that maybe I could fix some of these situations. I could take accountability for my own life, because every single situation on any of my inventories, like I could bring it back to my part in it. I could find where I got that ball rolling in those resentments. I could find what I did. And there's just so much power in that and accountability that, no longer mad at these people or these situations. Like I could talk about it now. It doesn't have to consume my life. After doing all those inventories and, kind of taking some accountability and finally experiencing, I guess you could say for the first time in my life, a little dose of that humility we talk about, right? Like kind of knowing who and what I really am. And that's an alcoholic who's deeply selfish, inconsiderate, liar, and I'm scared to death. Like, and knowing that, like really makes my life a little bit more digestible than it was before. But after doing all of that, my sponsor sent me home to do my sixth and seventh step. I got to do my fifth step, and that wasn't that big of a deal. I already had my life down on paper, just had to tell my sponsor about it. And like a lot of those things on there actually were like things that I swore I'd never tell anyone, never, ever. But the sponsor did such a wonderful job of like, building that trust with him, which I think is just so important to be able to say those things that you need to say on a fifth step. And there's no judgment in any part of that process. You know, he shared he shared some of his deep dark things as well, and that's something that I really try to do with my guys, especially around that time. And I choose to share my darkest thing. So it's like every time we talk about that, because the power it has really starts to shrink more and more. And but I thought I really enjoyed 6 and 7 was a big piece for me because he just sent me home um, to review the work that I had done so far, and um, and then talk to God and ask Him to take these things away from me. Um, and I did that up at Blue Mountain. When I drove up there and then took a hike, found a sweet overlook, and did my 6 and 7 step. I had my book with me. I reviewed the steps up until that point and said that 7 step prayer. And then went to the Missoula. It was a pretty sweet night. Yes, but amends. And then, I had my list from my 4th step, and then I was off on my amends. And I feel like the amends part is just it's so important. This program doesn't work without righting some of those wrongs. And I was just thinking, I was debating if I should bring it up or not, but like my grandma just passed away on Friday night around midnight. My grandma was my person. She's like the last grandparent I had left. Love her to death, matriarch of the family. It was very fast. Their decline. She's 93, dementia, heart issues, like in the hospital. So it was very fast, which is, I guess, good. You know, but I owed her a pretty big amends because, I mowed her lawn early on, but I did a terrible job at it because I was drunk. And like when I did it, like running over stuff, costing money to replace mowers or knocking down clotheslines, or like that's not really it, but also in that like stole quite a bit from her, stole money, stole pills, and like I feel like that's just alcoholism. It's that person you've always like loved like more than anything that you love, but you do those kind of things to them at the same time. And so, during the amends part, I talked to Sean about that, and we kind of decided she was 93, so she was quite old. I wasn't gonna tell her all those kind of things, but like what my amends to my grandmother looked like was like if she needs anything, I'm there. Like no matter time of day, whatever it is, I'm gonna be there for her. And that's what I got to do. I'd go see her every Monday for lunch, and her dementia was pretty bad at the end. Um, so I'd cook her food, hang out with her, get her pills, hearing aids in, all these kind of things. Um, and just started to decline. But I took care of the house as much as I could. Life got busy. So now Scott mows her lawn, actually. Or like Scott's guys mow her lawn. So, but anything around the house, trimming bushes, help cleaning, like get stuff from the attic, just whatever. It's like that's one of the more powerful amends, I think, of course, because of her passing recently. And his thing is like, I was there for her, whatever she needed at any time, and I think those kind of amends are extremely special. But, amends were kind of formed to me as like why they're so important and why I have to do them is because there's people that I had harmed out there that they deserve an amends from me. It's not like whether I want to do it or not. It's like, I had hurt them and they deserve to hear from me that I had hurt them and that I'll do anything I can to make that right. And because I'm really good about taking people's security from them and making them worry and all these kind of things, and we're not at time. This time goes fast. Touchdown in fantasy. um, so everything I do and everything that I do with my sponsor and the guys that I work with is I try to I fit them into the steps where it's like, 'cause I get to take like opinion out of things. I get to just like root everything in steps. Like, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a marriage counselor. I don't know. I'm an alcoholic. What do you want? You want my opinion on those kind of things? Like, I don't. So, like, but I know a little bit about alcoholism, and I know a little bit about the steps and how they can change people's life. And I get to see it all the time now. Been around the zoo for a while, and I see people come and go, but the ones that do stay. I get to see their lives change, and it's pretty incredible. Um, so now kind of today, I really kind of live as much as possible in 10, 11, and 12. It was initially explained to me as those are kind of those maintenance steps, but I kind of want to talk about it more as like the growth steps. I'm not trying to just maintain my sobriety. I want to keep growing in a sense. So, and I find the only way to do that is to, do my best to do a 10-step inventory in the evening, to pray in the morning and at night, and work with other alcoholics. Because, Sean said to me when I asked him to sponsor me, um, he only had one question for me, and that was, when you come out of that 12 step, will you be willing to work with other alcoholics? And there's only one answer to that question, and that's yes. Like, he's not going to work with you if you're not going to sponsor men when you get out of step 12. And, that's just exactly what I did. And that's what I encourage on the guys that I have the privilege to work with. Now today, I've got a pretty good life. Sobriety has given me the opportunity. I was able to go back to college. And I ended up getting a degree in social work, and I was sober through all that, did really well. And now I get to work in a job in the field that I went to school for. Like, got a job in social work. My minor's in gerontology, so working in geriatrics and with older adults. And I work in Missoula Aging Services. I have a wonderful job. I get to work with older adults every day, and I get to manage a resource team. So, doesn't get any better than that. What amazes me about alcoholics and in my own experience as well is I get to see people say they're going to do things and then they follow through. They do the things that they say they're going to do. Like, it's amazing to me. I would say I was going to do things all the time. Never did any of them. I bet a lot of people can relate. But I get to see it all the time. And it's extremely special. I get to sponsor a handful of guys, and those guys, man, I adore to death because I don't say it to be cheesy, but like meeting with those guys is like kind of the highlight of my week in a way. Like, I look forward to getting off work and going and meeting with my guys and talking about life, talking about what's going on in life, and then fitting the step work into that and reading those pages. Like, it doesn't get as good as that. I kind of think anymore when I'm at my best is when I'm sitting down with an alcoholic and we're reading those pages because, I feel like that's where God is in my life, is in those situations with us, and where I really know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Because Alcoholics Anonymous has given me so much and taken so little that why wouldn't I continue to do this thing? Why wouldn't I continue to sponsor men and show up for Alcoholics Anonymous? I found in my experience service to be extremely important. I started off by washing coffee cups at the zoo all the time before I became an opener, and then having those officer positions, I guess you call them, at the zoo for many, many years. And service work is an excellent way to stay connected to AA, especially even if you're kind of having a tough time. Being of service, I think, can really get a person out of their head and get their hands busy and doing something that's outside of themselves. But do sponsorship too, not because I want to, because I need to. The book tells me that. It's like so many times in that book, it talks about how vital sponsorship is. So that's what everything always comes down to me. I don't make as much meetings as I used to. Life and work and stuff. I try to get to one a week. But I always meet my guys though, throughout the week. So, the bread and butter is in sponsorship for me. So if any of y'all don't have a sponsor or thinking about getting a sponsor, please do as soon as possible. As I think recovery really starts once you get a sponsor and you get in that book and start reading those words. Because before then, kind of just hanging out. Recovery's in the steps. So again, congratulations to everyone getting birthdays. Devin, way to go. So Corey, proud of you. Mike, way to go, 2 years. That's awesome. And then Tom, 33, yeah, 32. Excellent. Always enjoy hearing you sharing that wisdom, man. So it's a good deal. And Scott, my friend, thank you very much for introducing me. And I think that's all I got. Thanks for having me.